Which Bible translation is best? It is a good thing that so many Christians love the Bible. It may not be such a good thing that Christians love their Bibles. That is, debating the relative merits of this translation over that can get rather emotional, and that rather quickly. I hope you'll take what follows in the spirit it's intended. I'm simply making some broad suggestions, not saying your conversion was false because it all started when you read Good News for Modern Man or some such thing. I'm simply trying to give guidelines, not arguing that we measure one another's piety by which Bible we use. There are at least 5 distinct issues related to Bible translations. The one that receives the most press is the issue of source manuscripts. There are 2 competing sets of manuscript families, an older set and a larger set. As you might guess, those who prefer the older set argue that it must be more true to the original because it's older, whereas the other group argues that the larger set must be more faithful because it is larger. In my estimation, this argument is grossly overblown, as are the distinctions between the 2 text families. It takes a brain much larger than mine to figure out which is better. The biggest issue for me is translation philosophy. There's a continuum among philosophies with a literal, word-by-word translation on one end and a Bible paraphrase on the other end. I'm rather strongly on the side of the former and opposed to the latter. I understand the motives that bring us the Message or the Ebonics Bible, but it's a bad idea. The further you may move away from word-for-word translation, the more room you leave for interpretation rather than translation. The third issue is beauty. Which translation in its form best befits its content? This, too, is one of the weaknesses of most paraphrases. Ironically, in trying to make the Bible more readable, they make it instead more pedestrian. This is likewise a weakness the more we push toward word-for-word equivalency. The most, quote, faithful translation often will clank, artistically speaking. The fourth issue is one of authority. The hard reality is that in our day, Bible translations are important to the long-term financial health of publishing companies. Some companies, it seems, in defense of their bottom lines, have added to the already crowded alphabet soup of Bible translations. Should the Bible be in the hands of publicly traded companies? How about parachurch organizations? Some have argued that the church alone has the authority to translate the Bible. The fifth issue is history. That is, which Bible translation fits best into the life of the church over the centuries? Is it not jarring to read, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want"? I believe there's a great value in having a translation that has inspired our hymnody. I believe there's a profound blessing for me to memorize the same words that my grandparents memorized when they were small. Different translations might score higher than others in one of the categories I've already listed, but lower than others in another. No single Bible translation gets 5 stars in every category. That said, it is possible, if not wise, to use different translations for different contexts. For example, the New American Standard alone earns 5 stars on word-for-word translation, but it earns no stars for beauty. If I find myself in a situation where I need a level of precision that is high, but too low to go to an interlinear Bible, I pick up my NASB. Otherwise, it stays on my shelf. In like manner, the King James Bible scores points on the issue of history and on beauty, but the anachronisms in the language are a real barrier to me. It tops the list on authority, but even there it is sketchy. An angry and likely light in his loafers king, it seems to me, shouldn't have had the ability to supplant a perfectly good Bible like the Geneva Bible. In the end, and on balance, my favorite for most circumstances is the New King James Bible. It scores high on history without getting me confused. It scores high on beauty without losing fidelity to the original text. It scores high, though not the highest, on word-for-word translation, while still communicating the gravity of its subject. Even on the issue of competing text families, it does well, as it usually includes parenthetically alternate readings in the older texts. The English Standard Version runs a close second for me, then the Geneva Bible. This is how I approach the question, but it does not, to borrow a phrase, determine the boundaries of my fellowship.